In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I am going to cover 6 prospects who I think need strong performances in their conference tournament and possibly the NCAA tournament to reignite their once sky-high NBA draft stock. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, and I am flying solo today. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about 6 prospects that I believe really need some strong performances to regain some of the buzz or some of the hype that they had entering college. These players either at one point entered college as projected lottery picks, or they had significant NBA draft buzz, and it has fizzled over the year. It's March. March is here, and a lot of prospects can make a name for themselves in March. And with these postseason tournaments, it's more than just a chance to compete. For these guys in this episode, I think it is the final opportunity, at least this year, to regain their draft momentum. But before I get too deep into this episode, I want to talk to you about the Locked On newsletter. Check it out at lockedondaily.com. It is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Also, if you are not subscribed to the Locked On NBA Big Boy YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because it is go time now. You got conference tournaments have already been some are already underway. You have the NCAA tournament coming up around the corner. After that, it's April. You have the pre-draft process, the workouts. Then you have the combine, and then it is the NBA draft. All right, let's get right into this episode. Today, I'm going to deep dive on the draft journeys or potential draft journeys of Dillon Mitchell, DJ Wagner, Riley Kugel, Aday Mara, Aaron Bradshaw, and Baba Miller. These are players that were once highly touted coming into college, or either in the case of Riley Kugel, he was a guy that had a very, very strong stretch of games during his freshman year. And I thought that he had significant NBA buzz. All right, let's start with Dillon Mitchell. Dillon Mitchell had a big game yesterday, and it is right on time for this article because he needed it. Dillon Mitchell was a player that entered his freshman year at Texas as highly touted. I think there are some people that believe he was Texas's most highly touted recruit since Kevin Durant was considered a one-and-done guy. And the main appeal for Dillon Mitchell was just his freakish athleticism. That was the main appeal. 6'8", long, bouncy athlete, good motor. And that was the appeal, athleticism. I didn't think he had much more game outside of that. And if you can go back and look at some of the older podcasts, I said I think he's a wing with the skill set of a center. If he were 7'1", he'd probably be a top 5 pick. But 6'8" wings that can't shoot. You got to have a special skill set. And for Dillon Mitchell, he does have the athleticism, but it's going to take a little bit more for him to regain the buzz that he had entering the season. But yesterday against Oklahoma State, he had 18 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. So I think he's trending in the right direction. If he can put up a few more performances like that, then I think he can possibly regain some of the buzz that he had entering his freshman year. He just needs to show that he can do more than be an athlete. Like when you look at his numbers on the defensive end, they're a little bit underwhelming. We're talking about a guy that is a freakish athlete, and he's averaging 1.3 steals per game. That's fine. 0.7 blocks per game. That's not bad. So that rounds up to about 2 stocks per game. You'll take that. But I think with his physical tools, you would like to see a little bit more. Coming into his freshman year, I thought, okay, maybe he can be Derrick Jones Jr. But I wasn't that high on him because I'm like, if he's projected to be Derrick Jones Jr., I don't know if that is a lottery pick. No knock on Derrick Jones Jr., but DJJ was undrafted, if I'm not mistaken. But there were a lot of people that were high on Dillon Mitchell. He went to Montverde, which is like a factory that is known for producing NBA talent. Then he had 18 points in the Jordan Brand Classic, and that just led to his draft stock to skyrocket. And people envision him as like this super athletic, switchable defender that can make plays or impact the game without having plays ran for him. And somewhat that is true, but the outside shooting is just absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. He is shooting a career high 27% from three this year, but that's a career high simply because he did not make a single three-pointer in his first 2 years at Texas. I forgot to mention he transferred to Cincinnati this offseason. And not only is the three-point shooting bad, the foul shooting. He shot 40% as a freshman, 60% from the foul line as a sophomore, which you'll take that improvement, but then it is down to 40% from the foul line this year. So for Dillon Mitchell, in order for him to regain some of the buzz that he had entering college, he's going to need more dominant performances like he had against Oklahoma State. Right now, while I am recording, Cincinnati is playing Iowa State. So Dillon Mitchell, if you are looking to regain the buzz that you had, you are going to have some dominant performances. You're going to have to lead Cincinnati to the NCAA tournament. You're going to have to show NBA scouts that your athleticism and your motor is in a tier of its own. Also show some connective passing and maybe mix in some jump shots. And if you're not going to shoot jumpers, be aggressive, get to the foul line, and make your free throws. But Dillon Mitchell is a player that I think he needs a strong performance in the conference tournament, in the NCAA tournament to regain his buzz, but he is on the right path. All right, the next player that I want to talk about is DJ Wagner. And DJ Wagner just had, in my opinion, and maybe the best game of his college career this past weekend. He had 24 points, 5 assists. He was 7 of 9 from the floor and made 3 of 4 from 3 against Mississippi State in a big win for Alabama. DJ Wagner entered college as a projected lottery pick. At one point, he was the number one player in his high school class. I think by his senior year, he ended up outside of the top 5, depending on the publications. But DJ Wagner had a lot of buzz and hype. Some of it is due to his dad. His dad, Dewan Wagner, was a lottery pick. His grandfather, Milt Wagner, played in the NBA. So they're looking to be like the Wagners are looking to be like the first, third generation family to play in the NBA. And DJ Wagner has been disappointing, to be honest with you. At Kentucky as a freshman, he was solid, 9.9 points, 3.3 rebounds per game, but he struggled with his efficiency, shot 40% from the floor, 29% from 3, follows Coach Cal to Arkansas, and the numbers are somewhat similar, 11.1 points per game, but he's shooting 41% from the floor and 32% from 3. The main appeal for Wagner coming into college was that he was an aggressive downhill scorer, a guy that could put up points in bunches, fill it up, get buckets, was able to consistently put pressure on the rim. And he has like a unique game. He's right-handed, but he plays like a lefty. And on the college level, I think that he's somewhat been exposed because I don't think he has any real physical advantages. I don't think he's like an elite athlete. He's not like a great finisher around the rim. He struggles with his jumper, not really a point guard, but needs the ball in his hands. And so all of that has been magnified and exposed on the college level. And I think he has an interesting situation next season simply because Arkansas has Darius Acuff coming to Fayetteville. And if Acuff lives up to the hype, which Acuff's a phenomenal scorer. He led the Nike EYBL Scholastic in scoring. Wagner has an interesting decision. Does he return to school? Does he have enough NBA draft buzz to enter the draft? I don't think so. I don't think he's a top 100 player. And he just hasn't made the strides and improvements that you would expect. He hasn't made the big jump from his freshman year to a sophomore year. So I think he's in a very, very interesting dilemma. However, if he plays like he played against Mississippi State, leads Arkansas on a deep run in the SEC tournament and even to the NCAA tournament and has some strong performances. Maybe he can regain some of the draft buzz that he had entering his freshman year when people, including myself, thought that he was going to be a one and done prospect and a lottery pick. There's nothing wrong with coming back to school for year two. I think NIL makes it easier for players to make sound decisions about returning to school or sound decisions about their future. But DJ Wagner has a very interesting situation ahead of him. But again, if he can show that he can knock down shots, that he can consistently get in the paint and make the right reads, I think there is a chance that he can regain some of the draft buzz that he had entering his freshman year. All right, up next, we're going to talk about Wagner's former teammate from high school and at Kentucky, Aaron Bradshaw. We're going to talk about Riley Kugel, Aday Mara, and Baba Miller. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it is easier than ever to make that happen, whether you're looking for a simple refresh or you are tackling a big home project. Wayfair has everything you need all in one place, and Wayfair has a huge selection, which makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or your budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that is just your style today. That is WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back, guaranteed. There's no waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now at turbotax.com. It is only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates, only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at turbotax.com/guarantee. All right, second segment. Let's talk about Aaron Bradshaw. Aaron Bradshaw was a guy, I admit, totally wrong about Aaron Bradshaw. I was sold on Aaron Bradshaw as a lottery pick in the 2024 NBA draft. I saw the positional size, the fluidity, the athleticism. I saw him as this big that fits the modern NBA as your vertical lob threat, rim protector with the potential to space the floor. I thought Aaron Bradshaw had all of the tools to be at least a first-round pick. I thought coming into his freshman year, even though I knew he was going to be sidelined at the beginning of the year with the foot injury because he broke his foot at the McDonald's game, but I thought maybe he could be like the 2024 NBA draft version of Derek Lively. If you don't remember, Derek Lively was highly touted going into his freshman year at Duke, missed significant time with like a calf strain, but by the end of the year, he was the anchor to Duke's defense, and he put himself in position to be a lottery pick. I thought Aaron Bradshaw was going to have a similar path. And boy, was I wrong. We're talking about a guy that's 7 feet with a 7'4" wingspan with size, athleticism, and skills and talent. And I just do not understand why he does not dominate or impact the game. As a freshman, he ended up playing 26 games at Kentucky. He averaged 4.9 points and 3.3 rebounds. And he had a game, I think it was like his second game of his college career, where he had 17 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, was 7 of 12 from the floor, and even made a 3. And that was his second game after returning from the foot injury. And I thought, you know what? I was right. This guy is going to be special. But that's been his best game of his college career. He had another game against Arkansas last year where he had 15 points and made 4 of 4 from the floor in like 12 minutes. But other than that, the production and the talent has not been on the same page, and strong performances have been few and far between. This year, he's averaging like 6 points and 3 rebounds per game, and I'm rounding up. The more and more I look back at like my notes and my film, yes, there were signs that he struggled with physicality. There were signs that the motor doesn't always run hot. There were signs that his lack of strength was going to just be a major issue on the college level. But those were signs that I totally ignored. And I think for Bradshaw, he is going to have a very, very strong performance in order to regain some of the buzz that he had. I mean, I'm talking about he's going to need a game where he's makes a couple threes, he's blocking shots, he's running the floor, he's playing like my guy Leif Thulin would say, like his hair's on fire. He's just going to have to show a lot of energy, effort, and motor, because he just seems like he's cool. Like he just plays too laid back, too cool. And even though he has the skill set and the talent to offset not having a great motor, he doesn't put it all together. So Aaron Bradshaw is a guy that I think is going to need a massive performance. And maybe he can trick somebody. But I think right now, over 2 years, the lack of effort, energy, lack of strength, I think NBA scouts have kind of written him off, at least for this year. But maybe he has a chance to like regain some of that buzz. All right, let's talk about Riley Kugel. Riley Kugel was a guy a couple years ago. Man, I feel like I was driving the Riley Kugel bandwagon. He had a stretch of games when Colin Castleton went out at Florida where he was averaging like 17 points a game. He shot the ball well. He showcased like this NBA athleticism. He was like an intuitive cutter. He was finishing in transition, knocking down threes. And I thought Riley Kugel is a guy that has some first round buzz. And to be honest with you, if I were him, I would have left after that 10-game stretch. Maybe he tricks a team into selecting him in the first round, early second. And right now, I think it's going to take, again, some very strong performances for him to even get a two-way contract. Riley Kugel is a guy that, now he's been consistent. He's been very consistent. But I'll get back to the stretch that made me so high on him. So he had a stretch where he averaged 17.3 points per game on 45-38 shooting splits, and he was the top dog on a top 15 Florida offense over this stretch in the second half of the season when Colin Castleton went down. Again, I thought he should have left when his name was hot, decides to return back to school, and he has a disappointing sophomore campaign. And Riley Kugel is the model of consistency. And usually that's a good thing. But when it comes to NBA draft prospects, you want to see some progression. I'm going to read these numbers out to you. As a freshman, Kugel, 9.9 points per game. As a sophomore at Florida, 9.2 points per game. As a junior at now Mississippi State, 9.5 points per game. So you can pencil Riley Kugel in for 9 points every single night. Rebounds, 2.8, 3.5, 3.0. So you can pencil him in for 3 rebounds a game. Assists, 1 assist as a freshman, 1.5 as a sophomore, 1.5 as a junior. So again, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Pencil him in. Now the shooting is where it fluctuates a little bit, and he just has not been able to maintain the efficiency that he had as a freshman. As a sophomore, he was down to 39% from the floor, 31% from three. So far as a junior, 44% from the floor and 32% from three. Kugel needs to have a big shooting performance to get back on the right track. Now, going back and looking at some of the concerns that I had as a freshman that have been maximized is his decision-making. And even though he had that hot streak as a freshman, his turnovers outnumbered his assists. As a sophomore, it's the same thing. More turnovers than assists. And this year is the first year in his 3-year career where he has more assists than turnovers. But if you look at the numbers, it is 44 assists to 42 turnovers. So the inefficient shooting, the decision-making / turnovers have killed his draft stock. But maybe if he has a few big shooting nights or games where he showcases his athleticism, and maybe he can regain some of the buzz that he had after his freshman year. All right, up next, we're going to talk about Aday Mara and Baba Miller, two prospects that came from Spain that entered college basketball with some first-round buzz, but have not lived up to the hype and expectations. All right, let's talk about Skims. Skims is making underwear for men. And for men who have had issues with underwear, whether it's fit, comfort, or just finding the right style, Skims is here for you. Skims has a line that offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. They never lose their shape and they stay in place all day. Whether I'm working out or just running errands, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you are wearing nothing at all. I don't know if I want to feel like I'm freeballing. But anyway, shop Skims men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and at Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right, last segment. Let's talk about Baba Miller. Baba came into his freshman year at Florida State with significant buzz. Unfortunately, and it's still crazy to me, we talked about this at length a couple years ago. My man was suspended like the first half of his college career over $3,000, which sounds absolutely ridiculous in this NIL era where guys are getting paid millions of dollars. I think it was something like he wasn't even committed to Florida State, and it was like $3,000 that was spent on him coming to the United States, yada, yada, yada. Unfairly suspended, was able to play halfway through his freshman year, and he struggled, and he really struggled. I chalked it up to just the inactivity, trying to adjust to college basketball on the fly in the middle of the season. And then as a sophomore, same struggles. But the appeal for Baba Miller was he, or maybe still is, 6'11" wing, who was a guard that had a late growth spurt. And right when Baba Miller was trending in the right direction was around the time that Giannis Antetokounmpo led the Milwaukee Bucks to the NBA championship. So there was a lot of people that envisioned this could be a poor man's Giannis. We're talking about 6'11", athletic, fluid, mobile, that can grab a rebound and go the length of the court in transition, some playmaking skills, defensive versatility, has the length, athleticism, and mobility to defend all over the floor. And I think the appeal for Baba Miller was that people saw a Giannis Antetokounmpo-like project, basically a big wing with guard skills that could handle, pass, and defend. And I think that put a little bit more pressure on him than was needed. And again, his career got off to a frustrating start at Florida State, returned for his sophomore year, and also did not make the jump that you would expect to see from a NBA prospect. Decided to transfer to Florida Atlantic. Didn't go too far. He loves Florida. Didn't go too far. And I think this year he has done a good job of regaining some of the buzz that he had coming into his freshman year, because as a freshman, he averaged 4.3 points per game. Again, I gave him a pass for that. As a sophomore, 7.6 points, basically 5 rebounds per game. He did average a block per game. But here are the numbers. 29% from three, which there was some appeal or at least thought that he was going to be a solid shooter. 55% from the foul line. And the knock that I had on Baba was he shot 30% from the foul line as a freshman, 55% as a sophomore. I thought he was afraid of contact. I really thought that he was shy, passive, unassertive because he didn't want to be fouled and because he knew that if he were aggressive and got fouled, he'd go to the foul line where he couldn't make a free throw. So if you're going to be shy and passive and not aggressive, you're basically not doing much out on the floor. So I thought that was one of the big concerns. He has a low release on his jumper. And I do think that, well, even though the numbers don't back it up, but based on what I saw in like Spain, I think that he's a better shooter than the numbers indicate. However, he has a low release on his shot, and that low release basically turns what can be a wide open catch and shoot three to a contested one, especially if there's someone with length that is closing out on him. However, Miller transferred to Florida Atlantic this year, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1.7 blocks. He's shooting 48% from the floor, a respectable 34% from three, and the free throw percentage has jumped up to 66%. So we're talking, he's more than doubled his free throw percentage from his freshman year to his junior season. You know how bad your numbers have to be if you can double your any type of field goal percentage? I mean, you have to have some really, really brutal numbers. But so I got to give him credit. He's gone from 30% to 55% to 66% from the foul line over the course of his college career. Now, there is still some intrigue with Miller. Again, 6'11", with wing-like skills. I think with that skill set, he's always going to draw some interest or be able to, get multiple opportunities. And in his last game, he showed what he was capable of. 14 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal. He was 6 of 10 from the floor. I think I'm going to go to the AAC tournament and get a chance to watch him live. I haven't seen him live, and it's been a few years, but I think Baba Miller has a chance to redeem some of the buzz that he had entering his freshman year. All right, let's talk about fellow Spaniard, Aday Mara. Now, Aday Mara was a player that definitely had some buzz. I was not the biggest fan of Mara as an NBA prospect, but I understand why there were some that are. 7'3", very, very skilled, a phenomenal passer, and he still has not been able to showcase like really how good of a passer he is, but he is a very, very gifted passer. Fundamentally sound, has the skill set that you would like in a modern big. Not the best athlete, but he's fundamentally sound. He can pass, massive interior presence, and he showed flashes of having a shooting touch. Now, he's still young, still only 19 years old, but he hasn't really lived up to the hype. He's averaging 6 points per game, 4 rebounds by shooting 60% from the floor this year. The numbers are up, almost double from his freshman year where he averaged 3.5 points. And he only played 9 minutes a game. This year, he's only playing 12 minutes a game. Both seasons, he is like number 8 on UCLA as far as minutes. Now, Mara has had some games to where you can see why there were some people that were high on him. It's just weird that his minutes have just continued to fluctuate. But there was a stretch of games in January and February where he was playing decent minutes. And I give you an example. He had 22 points on 7 of 7 shooting against Wisconsin. It was a 2-point game. It was a close game. So he played major minutes there. Or not major minutes, but he had impactful minutes. Followed that up with a game against Washington where he had 12 points, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks in 30 minutes. Then had a game against cross-city rival USC where he had 12 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks, 2 assists. In 27 minutes, he was 6 of 11 from the floor. So he has had some games. He had another game against USC a few days ago. 14 minutes, 6 of 7 from the floor. He added 14 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks, all in 14 minutes. So he has had some moments where he's been productive when he was given the minutes. However, I think he struggled with the physicality. I think his frame doesn't make it easy for him because he's all legs. When you look at him, he's like literally all legs. And if you're trying to establish low post position when you are all legs, somebody puts their forearm in your back and they're moving you around like furniture in a living room. So I think that he needs to obviously get stronger, establish a stronger base. I do like the baseline of skills. I don't know how it translates to the NBA level. I don't think he can defend in space, but he's a massive interior presence that can pass. And best case scenario, I think best case scenario, he could be a back end rotation guy that you just kind of throw in from time to time as a wild card. But I think he needs to get tougher, needs to play more physical, needs to show that he does have the range, because I thought that he had the potential to space the floor when I saw him in Spain, but he hasn't made a three-pointer in his college career. And even his free throw percentage, just 60% from the foul line in 2 seasons, hasn't been up to par. However, I think Mara is a guy that probably could have tricked the NBA if he would have stayed in Spain. If he stayed in Spain, played on the professional team, I pronounce it Zaragoza. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. But if he would have stayed on that team, maybe played a little spot minutes here and there in the ACB and showed flashes, I think maybe he could have tricked the NBA team. But if you're playing limited minutes in college, I think it's a lot harder for you to get away with that. But Mara's a guy, and maybe people were overzealous in projecting him as a one and done. He still has time, but he is going to need a strong performance in the conference tournament, in the NCAA tournament. I'm talking a monster game where he's blocking shots, making the right reads, finding cutters, playing significant minutes, and showing the touch, and and showing that he is a force in the paint. Maybe, just maybe he can regain some of the buzz, but I think it's unlikely. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Let me know your thoughts on these prospects. Which one of these prospects that I covered today do you think has the best chance to regain some of the buzz that they had entering college? Let me know. I'm out of here.